Today, we're diving into a really fascinating new angle on autism. We're not looking at neurons, but it's something totally different: the brain's hidden plumbing. Yeah, you heard that right. And this system might just hold a surprising new clue to one of its biggest mysteries. So let's start with a question that's been bugging researchers for decades. Why does autism affect 4 times as many boys as girls? I mean, that's not just a random statistic, right? It's a massive clue that's pointing towards some kind of fundamental biological difference. But what is it? Autism spectrum disorder is just this incredibly complex puzzle. And while we're getting better at diagnosing it, the deep down biological causes are still pretty much a mystery. What researchers are really after are concrete, physical markers in the brain that could finally start explaining where it comes from. To find those markers, scientists are now looking at a system that, honestly, you might not have even heard of before. Let's talk about the brain's dedicated cleaning crew. It's called the glymphatic system. I know, it's a mouthful. Just think of it as the brain's own personal waste disposal service. It's this whole network of channels that basically piggybacks on blood vessels to flush out all the harmful waste and junk. And here's the crucial part: it does most of its heavy lifting while we sleep. So how does this whole cleaning process actually work? Well, it's a pretty slick 3-step operation. First, clean cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF, gets pumped into the brain along the outside of arteries. Then, this clean fluid washes through all the brain tissue, mixing with the fluid between the cells and picking up all the trash, like old proteins and other gunk. Finally, this now dirty fluid gets collected along the outside of veins and flushed out of the brain so the body can get rid of it. Simple as that. Okay, so what happens if this system gets sluggish or, clogged up? Well, it's just like a city when the garbage collectors go on strike. Waste starts to pile up, and scientists are really starting to suspect that this buildup could be a key player in a whole bunch of neurological disorders. And this is where the story gets really interesting. We're moving past just theory and into tangible evidence, all thanks to some incredible new clues that are popping up on brain scans. For the very first time, using some pretty advanced MRI techniques, researchers can actually see and measure this cleaning system while it's working. They're not just guessing it's there anymore. They are literally mapping its pipes and tracking how well it's flowing. The way they do this is by looking for something called paravascular spaces, or PVS for short. These are the actual pipes the fluid flows through, and on an MRI, they show up as these little bright spots. They use a simple grading system to score them. A higher grade means there are more of these visible channels, and it likely means they're getting bigger or more enlarged. But it's not enough to just count the pipes. Researchers use 2 different but complementary methods. First is PVS volume, which measures the size of the pipes. Think about it like the drains in your house. If your pipes are suddenly looking way wider, that's probably a bad sign. It might mean there's a serious clog downstream causing everything to back up. The second method is called the DTI-ALPS index, and that measures the actual flow of the fluid through those pipes. A low score here means the whole cleaning process is slow and sluggish. And here is the big reveal. When they looked at kids with autism, what did they find? Well, across multiple recent studies, the pattern was consistent and crystal clear. Larger PVS volume, which points to a potential backup, and a lower DTI-ALPS index, which means sluggish clearance. Both measurements are pointing to the exact same problem: the plumbing is clogged. But honestly, the most stunning finding of all came when the researchers connected this data all the way back to the very first question we started with. Remember this? That 4-to-1 male-to-female ratio. It's possible that this whole glymphatic system, this brain plumbing, might finally offer a biological clue that helps explain it. Just look at this data from a huge 2023 study. It's pretty striking. When they measured the size of these PVS pipes, they found it was significantly higher, but only in boys with autism. For girls with autism and for both boys and girls in the control group, the volume was normal. This plumbing issue appeared to be almost entirely specific to boys with ASD. The researchers themselves put it this way, concluding that the widening of these spaces can be a neuroimaging feature of male ASD patients, and that it may depend on males' specific risk factors acting early during neurodevelopment. So what they're saying is that something seems to be happening very, very early on in the developing brain that is specific to males and is messing with this absolutely critical cleaning system. And the connections just kept popping up. The effect was most powerful in the youngest kids, those under 4. It also seemed to track with severity. Get this, almost half of the kids with severe autism had the most dilated pipes. And since this whole system works during sleep, it's maybe not so surprising that they also found a link to insomnia, which suggests there could be this nasty, vicious cycle going on. So, what does all this actually mean for the future? How can we take this knowledge and really put it to use? Well, this research opens the door to some absolutely incredible new possibilities. First off, we could be looking at an early, objective, biological marker for some forms of autism. Something you can physically see on a scan instead of relying only on behavior. It gives us a real, tangible explanation for that 4-to-1 male ratio, and it opens up totally new areas of research into brain health. But maybe the most exciting part? If a clogged system's part of the problem, then maybe, just maybe, it could one day become a target for new therapies. And this isn't some far-off sci-fi idea. It's already happening. One recent study took this a step further and fed all this MRI data into a machine learning algorithm. The result? A model that could identify kids with autism with a pretty astonishing 84% accuracy. That is a huge first step toward a brand new type of diagnostic tool. Which leaves us with one final, really tantalizing thought. After all our searching through complex genetics and environmental factors, could part of the key to understanding one of our most complex neurological conditions lie with the brain's humble, hardworking cleaning crew? That's a question that researchers are now racing to answer.